morning, viewers and followers of Sararights TV. You're most welcome for this our weekly news digest. I am Florence, who is hosting you today. My senior Galadino has been taken up by a very special issue, and I believe he will join us next Saturday. We are here to bring you the stories that happened this week. We are just going to wrap up with everything that happened this week to keep you updated on the matters that happened. So we begin with Uganda prepares to end Ebola outbreak. Uganda reached a major milestone in its fight against Ebola after health authorities confirmed that the country's last remaining Ebola patient had fully recovered and was due for discharge from Mulago National Referral Hospital. Government officials announced on Wednesday that once the patients left isolation, Uganda will begin the World Health Organization mandatory 42 days countdown before it can officially be declared Ebola free, provided no new infections are detected. The outbreak, which was declared in May 2026, involved the Bundibugyo strain of the Ebola virus. Uganda recorded 20 confirmed cases, including 2 deaths, while most of the infections were linked to travelers from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Health officials praised the country's surveillance system, rapid contact tracing, and treatment centers for preventing wider community transmission. However, authorities urged Ugandans to remain vigilant because the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo continued to report rising Ebola cases. Government secures funding for a new Karuma bridge. Another major development on Wednesday was the government's announcement that funding had been secured for the construction of the new Karuma bridge, one of Uganda's most important infrastructure projects. The bridge will replace the again Karuma bridge on the Kampala-Gulu highway, a virtual transport corridor linking Kampala with northern Uganda and West Nile region. The exciting bridge was experiencing repeating closure and repairs, causing long traffic delays and disrupting trade, tourism, and passenger transport. The new bridge is expected to improve road safety, reduce travel time in the Republic of Congo. Construction is expected to proceed with international financing and will form part of Uganda's broader infrastructure development strategy. Last Ebola patient discharged countdown to free status starts. Uganda has entered the final phase of its fight against the last Ebola outbreak after discharging the country's last confirmed patient yesterday. The discharge marks the start of a 42 days count that Uganda has no active confirmed Ebola patient. However, the Health Minister Dr. Chris Bayomunsi cautioned that the outbreak is not yet over. Under World Health Organization guidelines, a country can only be declared Ebola-free after completing 42 consecutive days, equivalent to 2 maximum incubation period of the virus without registering another confirmed case. This is not the end of the outbreak. The discharge of the last patient simply marks the beginning of the countdown. We must all remain vigilant, Baisomonishi said. Uganda recorded 20 confirmed Ebola cases during outbreak, while 2 deaths, translating into a case fatality rate of less than 10%, one of the lowest ever recorded during an outbreak involving the Bundibugyo virus strain. The head of Mulago Isolation Unity, Dr. David Kagwa, said this was the third Ebola outbreak managed at the facility will each emergency strengthening Uganda's preparedness and treatment system. Although there is still no approved cure for Ebola, Kagwa said patients survive because of intensive support care, including intravenous fluid, electrolyte replacement, oxygen therapy, nutrition support, and treatment of secondary infections. In selected cases, Uganda also administered experimental medicine under compassionate use arrangements. We don't only take care of the confirmed patient during this outbreak. More than 160 suspected patients passed through this unit. Many eventually tested negative for Ebola but were treated for other serious illness that could also have been fatal, he noted. Kagwa said managing suspected cases is equally important because disease such as severe Ebola. World Health Organization credited Uganda's success to investment made long before the outbreak began. According to the World Health Organization country representative Dr. Kasonde Muinga, Uganda's emergency system had already been established, trained and equipped before the first patient crossed the border. Muinga emphasized that Uganda managed to save many lives because of high level of preparedness. She noted the outbreak while emergency medicine in advanced medical supplies had also been prepositioned at national medical stores, allowing a rapid response once Ebola was confirmed. The earlier people seek treatment, the greater their chances of recovery. People should have confidence in Uganda's health service, Muinga said. Explaining the significance of the 42 days countdown, Braimonsi said Ebola has an incubation period of up to 21 days and international guidelines require countries to complete 2 full incubation cycles after the last patient either dies or is discharged before declaring an outbreak recover. While Uganda celebrates a major milestone, neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo continues battling one of the world's largest Ebola outbreak. The last figure shows the country has recorded 2,011 confirmed cases of Ebola Bundibugyo strain, including with transmission continuing in affected province. To reduce the risk of repeated importations, Uganda has shifted part of its response beyond its border. Bayomunisi said President Yoweri Museveni and other Democratic Republic of Congo and the President of Democratic Republic of Congo, Felix Tshisekedi, agreed to strengthen bilateral cooperation, leading to the signing of Memorandum of Understanding between the two countries. Uganda has since deployed more than 50 medical experts into Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo to strengthen outbreak coordination, surveillance, and patient management. In the other stories, government bars LCs from land deals. The government has suspended local council 1 chairpersons seeking re-election from handling land transactions, seek re-election or campaign for other candidates. In a public advisory, the ministry directed campaigning LC1 leaders to stop witnessing, endorsing, recommending, or overseeing any land-related transaction until the conclusion of the election process. The directive bars affected leaders from participating in land sales and purchases, signing or witnessing agreement, resolving boundaries disputes, verifying ownership, or undertaking any administrative roles connected to land transfer. You are advised to refrain from participating in witnessing, endorsing, recommending, or overseeing any land-related transaction until the electoral process has members of the public not to rely on LC1 chairpersons actively involved in campaigns for land-related services. People with urgent land matters have instead been advised to seek the service of lawyers or use other lawful channels until the election process is completed. Land Ministry spokesperson Dennis Obo said the directive is intended to safeguard landowners and prevent fraud transaction during the LC1 election period. The LCs are currently going through the election process, and we do not want cases of fraud to arise during this transition period, Obo said. This is why the minister issued the directive. Those who need to proceed with land transaction can engage lawyers until the new leaders assume office and the normal process is restored. The directive affected a key role traditionally played by LC1 chairpersons who have been relied upon at the village level to verify land ownership and settle disputes because of their knowledge of local communities. Enactment of the Local Government Act 1997, LC1 leaders have remained the closest administrative authority to the community in main rural areas. Their endorsement of land agreements has provided an additional layer of confidence for buyers, sellers, financial institutions, the public, and the courts of law because they often know the history of land ownership, boundaries, and families involved. However, lawyer Mark Edson Tukamushaba said the absence of LC1 chairpersons from land transaction will not invalidate deals because the law does not make their participation mandatory. You can transact without an LC, but for evidential purpose, you need them because they are the closest arm of government. However, their participation is simply evidential. There is no law to say that they should be involved, Tukumushaba said. He advised members of the public to use lawyers to guide them through transaction during the suspension period. Godfrey Kokomo, the LC1 chairperson for Kungu village in KHITAM municipality, Wakiso district, welcomed the measure, saying it was necessary to prevent possible abuse of office during campaigns. Kokomo, who has served as LC1 leader for 25 years, said the suspension would have minimal impact because land transactions are not emergencies and can wait until after elections. Land transaction can wait. Elections are due on July 28th, and after that there will be a short period for handing over. I don't see much effect because this is a temporary measure, he said. He said residents who need to complete land deals can explore other legal options. Even without an LC1 chairperson, transaction can still stand as long as it has been witnessed by the required stakeholder, Kokomo said. Despite supporting the suspension, Kokomo defends the importance of LC1 leaders in fighting land fraud, saying their local knowledge helps buyers establish whether sellers are genuine owners. When somebody is investing money in property, they need to due diligence so that the transaction does not backfire. If you know the landowner, you can confirm whether that person is the real owner, he said. He warned that relying on official documents may not always be enough because fraudsters have developed new method of impersonating landowners. People now have national IDs, but someone can get national ID using another person's detail. Some people even have several national IDs. You cannot just depend on seeing an ID and a photograph, he said. Kokomo said LC1 leaders remain important because they can help identify the rightful owners of the disputed property on the ground. The LC1 chairperson can help identify the real owner. They can tell you, no, this is not the actual person who owns this land, he said. The directive comes after nomination off on Wednesday. The exercise, which is slated to end on Sunday, has been marked by the massive turnout, unique campaign manifestos, and the sudden death of a candidate. The nomination followed the verification of residence and completion of village voters registers displayed on Monday and Tuesday. The election of LCs has suffered repeated postponement due to financial constraints and conflicting signals within the government. In the other side of the story, Museveni held Zimbabwe on April National Program of Action. President Yoweri Museveni has congratulated Zimbabwe upon the launch of the country's Africa Peer Review Mechanism National Program of Action, describing it as a significant step towards strengthening governance, economic transformation, and sustainable development. The program, launched yesterday, provides a roadmap for improving democratic governance, economic management, and institutional effectiveness in line with the African Union Agenda 2063. In a speech delivered by Vice President Jessica Alupo, Museveni assured Zimbabwe of Uganda's continued support as it implements the reform outlined in its program. Yesterday's event marks an important milestone in Zimbabwe's APREM journey. The official launch of the targeted review on economic governance and management demonstrates Zimbabwe's continued commitment to strengthening economic governance, accountable institutions, and sustainable socio-economic transformation in pursuit of the aspiration of Agenda 2063, Museveni said. Museveni commended Zimbabwe for the progress it has made since joining the APREM on February 8, 2020, becoming the 44th member state. Within a relatively short period, Zimbabwe successfully completed its targeted review on economic governance and management, presented the report to the APR Forum of Heads of State and Government on February 13, 2026, and has now launched a national-owned and costed national program of action, he said. Museveni described Zimbabwe's decision to undertake a targeted review on economic governance as timely with the African Continental Free Trade Area, one of the flagship projects of the Agenda 2063, adding that the review also recognized Zimbabwe's commitment to the regional integration through the Southern Africa Development Community as the common market for Eastern and Southern Africa. Museveni described the APRM as Africa's premier governance instruction founded on the principle that the continent's challenges are best addressed through African-led solutions, through voluntary self-assessment, peer learning, mutual accountability, and the exchange of best practices. The mechanism has become an indispensable platform for strengthening institutions, informing policy reform, promoting peace, and accelerating socio-economic transformation across our continent, he said. However, Museveni emphasized that the real value of the APRM lies in implementation of the proposed reforms, not in producing reviewing reports. Our Uganda's experience has demonstrated that peer review delivers lasting value only when national programs of action are adequately resourced, effectively coordinated, regularly monitored, and continuously reviewed. Lastly, civil aviation sacked 89 over forged papers. 89 employees were dismissed from the Civil Aviation Authority (CAA) after it was discovered that they used forged academic documents to secure jobs. Appearing before Parliament's Physical Infrastructure Committee on Wednesday, Olive Burungi Lumanya, the CAA Deputy Director General, disclosed that 89 were dismissed after a fair hearing. They were forgeries. Someone who would forge that he or she got an A or credit 6 in a subject like mathematics to get a job, they were accorded a fair hearing before the axe fell on them in line with Section 65 and 66 of the Employment Act 2006. When they went through the disciplinary hearing, we dismissed them on top of what we withheld their terminal benefits. Because to us, matters they had worked for all those years, they had worked based on forgery, she explained. Lumonya said CAA carried out the investigation in partnership with the Uganda National Examination Board. The committee, which was presided over by the chairperson, Mwin Panka of the Mbarara South, ordered CAA to present qualification of all their top management staff by yesterday 6 p.m. for further consideration. Mpaka also asked for a report in detail how the 89 employees were terminated. We are also going to request you to submit the report of the action taken on these 89 people who are believed to have forged academic qualifications and at what level they forged. But most importantly, an action taken report which will inform the committee on when to invite you for thorough interaction, Mpaka said. Hoima City Women Representative as Nancy Nyakato, who doubts as SADO Minister for Works and Transport, and Bukanga North MP Northern Baima, said a probe into 2024 crash of the helicopter that was carrying Deputy Speaker of Parliament Thomas Taiba should be instituted. In the last meeting, the Civil Aviation had had with this committee in 2024, where many of us were not members. CAA confirmed that they were going to rob Bar Aviation Company over the crash, which also caused death of our Deputy Speaker Thomas Taibwa. How far did you go with investigating the cause of the accident, and what steps have you taken to ensure aircraft in our airspace are secure? Nyakato inquired. Baima said, Uganda needs a safe aviation industry. I witnessed what happened to Deputy Speaker. I thought that we were lucky these were Ugandans. What if it had happened to guests in this country? What picture would it have painted? Baima said. During an engagement with Civil Aviation Authority management on Wednesday, members of parliament sitting on the Physical Infrastructure Committee expressed shock at the extent of forgery in government parastatal and agencies. Kole North MP Dr. Samuel Opio Akti recommended a forensic audit of all CAA staff. Have you verified that all the staff that you have are qualified? Because it will be very dangerous to have an air traffic control officer who is not qualified, he said. Bokora County Member of Parliament Emmanuel Lukoli pointed out that while President Yoweri Museveni had directed that 152 staff be probed in October last year, less number was investigated. You have not accounted for the 633 staff. Aviation is risky business. When you employ people who are not qualified, you are telling people not to sign their death warrants before flying. Lukoli said. In Bada North Legislature, Medza Guma Gumsiriza wondered how 89 people could forge academic papers to work for a sensitive agency such as CAA. You are responsible for managing aircraft and human beings that use air transport. This country has very qualified personnel. If 89 people can look through the system, how can we be sure that you are qualified? If it doesn't break out rules, we are going to ask for qualifications of the management director and how you got recruited, Guma said. And that's all we have for you this morning. Thank you for being with Sararights TV. We are always happy to have you. We'll continue to bring you the weekly news digest to keep you informed on the matters that are going in our country. Have a blessed day.